Our next guest, Dr. Dennis Ray, brings with him a doctorate in international relations from the University of Denver, with a postdoctorate in Chinese studies at the University of California at Berkeley. Welcome to the show, Dr. Ray.
Thank you very much.
So tell me about your journey. It seems like you've got a vast range of experience. So tell me a little bit about how you got to where you're at.
Well, I guess I should specify where I'm at, and
Yes.
that's at Royal Roads University
Okay.
on Vancouver Island. And there I teach global issues in online course in entrepreneurship, both courses at the MBA level. So the question is really, how does someone go from an international relations degree to business? And the simple and most correct answer is probably a whole series of bad career choices.
Okay. So tell me more about that. You've got my interest.
Okay. Well, in graduate school, I had three career options. One of them was the CIA, and that was a smart move not to go there. The second one was to go to work as one of 12 foreign policy international relations analysts in the Legislative Reference Service for the U.S. Congress. And one of my professors, Joseph Corbell, his daughter, Madeleine Albright Corbell, took that career path.
Okay.
And sometimes when I bemoan the directions of U.S. foreign policy, I think, yes, I should have taken that career path. But in my last semester before going off to teach, I had this wonderful charismatic professor who I thought, wow, that's what I want to do and be like that. And so I took an academic career path. But I didn't realize, my degree was actually international relations and economics. I didn't realize that I would end up in a political science department. I really thought I might be teaching international relations and economics. And so I ended up for about a couple decades teaching courses in foreign policy during the Vietnam War, international relations, international political economy. And then when pickings were weak in terms of student enrollment, I even had to teach American government without ever having a university course in the subject. So that was a first career mistake.
Okay. So now I understand that your passion, and I could be wrong, is really in entrepreneurship. So tell me a little bit about what is entrepreneurship? Where does your passion come from in that particular topic area?
Well, I'll ignore for now the what is entrepreneurship, other than saying very simply, in my view, it's about creating new ventures, and particularly new ventures with innovative and significant growth potential. The passion comes from, I was a full professor at a very young age, the youngest in the history of a state university in Los Angeles. And at that point, it was, well, what's the next thing that I do from here? And lateral moves weren't really very attractive because the university, in the academic world, it's not common that you go to a higher status university than where you got your doctorate. And Denver was basically noted for producing people who went into practice, not who went on to become distinguished scholars, although I'm sure there's a number of those. And one of my classmates was a university president, but another was one of our ambassadors to Kenya. So we were more practical oriented in terms of the career paths of our graduates. The lateral move wasn't a likely thing, so I got bored. And a few years after getting that full professorship, basically what I did is I had written enough articles that there was a Pepperdine University in Los Angeles. They were starting a global MBA program for executives, very senior executives, and they couldn't find anyone to teach their most international course. And the dean at UCLA, who was a friend of mine, a China scholar and a management scholar, said, you know, you ought to go talk to that guy at Cal State Los Angeles. So they invited me 2 weeks before the course started to teach a course on international management and global issues, basically. And that led to 5-6 years of teaching, a number of job opportunities, which I turned down except for the last one.
Yeah.
So I ended up, after the program was closed down, taking a year's leave and being the vice president for international marketing for a small manufacturing, Canadian,
Yes.
U.S. manufacturing firm. So I set up a subsidiary in Japan, distribution through the Asian Pacific, and discovered that I really enjoyed it, was pretty good at it. But this was a company that had problems and issues. And so I decided to do something similar, but to do it on my own.
Okay.
So if you can imagine how most men put complex children's toys together, what we do is we try to put it together without looking at the instructions.
Absolutely.
So I tried being an entrepreneur without actually ever thinking about, well, what's really involved.
Yeah.
And by that point, I was in late 30s. And well, I might have figured it out intuitively,
Yes.
10 or 15, 20 years earlier, after several near miss. I wouldn't describe them as failed ventures because they actually did some remarkable things, but they didn't quite achieve sustainability.
Okay.
I thought, what I ought to do is go back and study this thing.
Yes.
So that was it. There was another transition involved there from international relations and Chinese studies, and that was looking at the world in essentially abstract terms.
Okay.
And we had chatted not so long ago about your own MBA experience
Of
and how
course.
the theories that sort of define MBA education don't always apply in the real world. There's a level of complexity.
Absolutely.
Well, when you take that idea and you apply it to, let's say, foreign policy, or the structure of the international system, or how to deal with poverty or with war, it's quite exciting intellectually to spend your life thinking about these issues. But at a certain point, a level of frustration emerges. Well, yeah, it's great to have these theories, but
Yes,
why
okay.
isn't anything improving? So I was really driven by the concreteness and the practicality of entrepreneurship. You might not have the huge system-changing things that would be comparable to solving world poverty or injustice or whatever,
Yes.
but you would have some impact, and that was very important to me.
True enough, and you've said it beautifully. For me, it was more of how do we make these things real? How do we make them real so that we are actually doing them? And it's great to talk about them. It's great to have concepts written in books. But when you get down to the real world, you have the variable of human beings. And with international work, you also have the variable of cultural norms and other norms within that country. So what would you say over the last few years has been your greatest learning?
Wow. The appeal of being a professor is that you can be a student, you can continue to learn. And to identify any one thing is probably difficult. It probably relates to the latent, unrealized power of entrepreneurship and the linkage between entrepreneurship and our ability to solve the kind of very deep systemic problems in the global capitalist system,
Okay.
in the economies of the West,
Okay.
that I think we depend far too much on top-down solutions.
Okay.
When we think about economic development, we think about industrial relocation, attracting foreign firms, attracting very large companies. We don't think about, in terms of policy and building national policy around things like cultivating local entrepreneurs.
Of course.
So I think the power of a bottom-up strategy of economic development
Okay.
is very appealing to me.
Okay.